Ichigo Awakens by Telach, Chapter 19, Recovery and Reactions. Recovery and Reactions. With Ichigo, the orange-haired warrior stood there in the pale light of the moon amidst the wreckage and rubble of his clash with the captain. He wasn't aware of the gathering audience or even what they saw. His knowledge about Aizen's abilities were simply that of illusions, not the extent of it. He surveyed the soul reapers surrounding him, the distraught petite girl with her hair in a bun, a man with a tattoo of 69 on his face, another wearing sunglasses with a thin mustache, a third with long blonde hair covering an eye, a woman with wavy blonde hair and huge assets, and Gin Ichimaru with a shorter white-haired boy wearing a hori. Two captains, one of which tried to kill me earlier, he thought to himself as he analyzed his situation, noting the badges on the other arms, along with five lieutenants. Ichigo felt the stress of the earlier fights seep into his body, making him feel weaker and weaker. Can I talk my way out of this? You murderer! The petite girl screamed, charging at him with hate in her eyes. Guess not, he realized with finality as the girl called out her blade, turning it into a multi-pronged sword on fire. When she got within 5 feet of him, however, he stopped her cold in her tracks with a large hand wrapped tightly around her neck. I need to get out of here. That fight took too much out of me. He tightened his grip as she struggled feebly in his hand, already weakening from the cut of blood flow to her brain. He loosened his grip when she stopped struggling, leaving her only unconscious. It did not look good to the others watching this. Momo! He heard them cry out as he let the girl down as gently and quickly as possible. He barely had enough time to avoid the spinning twin-sided scythe blade, causing him to jump away from the downed girl. You bastard! The man with the tattoo called out, guessing Aizen had them under his illusion before the fight. He tried to focus while dodging the blades as the lieutenant charged at him with both Kusarigawa poles, while the Yakuza man attacked him with the largest scimitar blade that had a pick below the tip. Both were relentless in their attacks, making Ichigo bend and weave through their attacks. Unaware of the blonde lieutenant chanting off a Kido spell, he was impaled with the familiar rods of light, which slowed him enough for both of his attackers to strike him. Both attacks hit true as the cold steel dug their way into his flesh, or that was the intention at least. When they made contact, they bounced off of him harmlessly. Impossible! The white-haired Hitsugaya gasped. Just how much power does he have? He damned his own abilities for being too dangerous to allow him to join in the fight, wanting to immediately kill the Ryoko for daring to harm his friend. More than enough, Kin thought as he watched the fight, losing his fox-like smirk to analyzing the hybrid. That's a terrifying hero he has, he thought before Ichigo forced his opponents away with the massive pulse of his Reiatsu. Near-perfect regeneration, strong defense, amazing right to control and manipulation, and best of all, he'll only get stronger. He felt himself grin. He'll do nicely. He saw Hisagi throw his Shikai blade one more time at the hybrid. I can't wait any longer, Ichigo growled in his mind. Just as the spinning blades passed him, he grabbed onto the chain and wrapped it around his arm. The look of shock on the lieutenant was enough for Ichigo to yank on the chain and swing him around like a flail. After watching his ally get slammed into several hard surfaces, the Yakuza-looking man tried to attack Ichigo again. Ichigo sent him flying back with a punch to his gut, and further back as Hisagi collided with him. Haru 11, Tsusori Raiden, he whispered, sending an electric current through the chain and turning the two into light bulbs. Raise your head, Wabisuki, he heard from behind him. He released the Sangetsu in time to turn and block a relentless assault from the Squad 3 lieutenant and his hook-shaped blade. When he backed off, Ichigo nearly collapsed at the sudden change of weight in his sword. My blade doubles the weight of anything it strikes. I've struck your sword over 20 times. You can no longer lift your blade, the man said as he hooked Ichigo's neck with his sword. Submit in atone for the sin of hurting my friends, he said as he pulled. Uzuru, that's not going to work, Jin called out to his lieutenant. Sure enough, the blade barely made a scratch in the hybrid. Ichigo merely grabbed the blade and removed it from his neck before calmly raising up his sword. Kira was watching in dismay as Ichigo clearly demonstrated his prowess. Next time I see you, tell me how much this hurts, he said before swinging the flat of his blade like a club and sending the man flying. Damn, I could barely keep that going, he said before changing his blade and removing the effects. That was really heavy. Sit upon the frosted heavens, Hurimaru, the child captain called out. In the midst of the onslaught against the hybrid, his lieutenant, Rangiku, managed to pull his childhood friend Momo out of harm's way. With the other lieutenant out of his range, he and Ichimaru could now get involved. He set a few of his ice dragons down on the lone Ryoka. He saw Ichigo scan the area and seemed relieved that he was alone. He saw a dark red ball of energy coalesce in his hand. Is that a he thought in confusion before Ichigo thrust his hand at him and released the torrent of power. Bakudo 31, Enkosen! Jin yelled out, getting in front of his colleagues with a red-orange shield before Ichigo Zero destroyed the dragons and blasted even them away. Is he already at the level of an espada? Jin wondered, thinking back to Aizen's army and comparing the powers of the two. Before he could do anything else, a massive thick cloud of red smoke expanded from Ichigo's position, and his Reiatsu seemed to disappear. That project worked a little too well, Aizen. This boy is going to kill you. He predicted as reinforcements came too late. Ichigo has disappeared. With Ichigo, ow, 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 ow. The hybrid chanted as he sped walked towards another sewer entrance to hide and lick his wounds. With the danger gone and his adrenaline wearing away, that dull itch in his side became a sharp pain, like something was carving away at his insides. Damn you, Aizen, he cursed, feeling himself weaken more and more. This is going to make talking to Yamamoto a bit worrisome. He managed to find his way to a safe place and collapsed on the floor. Back in the sewer system, almost completely drained, and they know I have hollow powers. Ichigo grunted. I need a nap, he mumbled before darkness took him, unaware of several figures in white appearing from behind him. With Renji, he stood, watching in shock and awe at the battle that transpired. He brought Ganju and Hanatoro to a good resting spot for the night, and it wouldn't be too much longer till they got to Rukia's cell. He sent out a couple hell butterflies, informing both his captain and the head captain of what was happening with him. He confronted Ichigo and was completely outclassed in a single move. He would take the other Ryoka and bring him to the repentance cell to settle a personal issue of some kind, and Ichigo was determined to reach the commander. While the others slept, he stood as the sentinel against any that might show up for some meager ounce of glory or something else idiotic. That's when he saw explosions of force and Reishi. He immediately realized that Ichigo was fighting and was glad that Ichigo chose not to fight him. After some time, the circle died down and he heard an echoing scream of despair that stretched all over the city. Captain Aizen! He heard a Hinamori scream that caught the tattooed lieutenant's attention. You murderer! Renji was shocked at that. Ichigo, you killed him? Reiji didn't know Ichigo at all personally, just that he had the presence of a powerful and honorable warrior. Rukia told him more as a man that would fight to protect anyone if he could help. Everything he heard about Ichigo and everything he knew about Aizen told him that the two would be friends, allies. Aizen would bring Ichigo to the commander. They discuss Rukia's case and get her amnesty, and he'd be placed under strict observation until the event that he could fully become a Soul Reaper. But now, Ichigo killed Aizen. What was going on? The battle continued with Lieutenant Kira Hisagi and Tetsusamen proving no match, and Captain Hitsukaya attempting to attack, only for his Shikai to be overpowered with the Hollow Zero. Ichigo, what the hell are you? With Tatsuki squad to barracks. Tatsuki lay on her cell cot, resting and waiting with guards on standby to act. Despite what happened after the spar, Tatsuki was being treated rather well. The interrogation didn't yield too much. They didn't already know, other than who could fight captains. Tatsuki was being well-behaved prisoner, so she was being treated relatively well. It wasn't until Ichigo fight with Aizen started did she react. What's going on? She asked one of her guards. When a member of the patrol corps came in, when the fight ended, the last thing she felt about her lover's Reitsu was that it was fluctuating from focused to chaotic and weak. She was sitting at the edge of the cot with an anticipation and worry. Apparently, Ichigo met with Captain Aizen, the messenger stated. Aizen offered to help Ichigo, who instantly attacked with no other provocation. Her teachers never said anything about Aizen to her. All she knew was that he was never to be trusted. But for Ichigo to simply attack someone out of the blue, he must know something about Aizen she clearly didn't. Captain Eisen stated his intention to save the prisoner, but Ichigo responded that he didn't care about the prisoner before fatally injuring the captain. Ichigo Kurosaki disappeared without a trace shortly after disabling Lieutenant Momo Hinamari, Izuru Kira, Shuhi Hisagi, and Tetsu Simon Iba. Tatsuki felt sick and numb, all the strength drained from her. Same orders apply. Capture the Ryoko by any means necessary. He didn't say it, but the implications were clear. Little force is permitted. Only Captain Class Soul Reapers may confront Ichigo Kurosaki. With Chad, he was resting after a long day of running around, evading patrols, beating the crap out of Soul Reapers, placing tags all over the Cerete, and he still had more to do. He had the energy more than enough to keep going. Endurance, stamina, and strength were the things Tatsuki couldn't beat him at, and he wasn't too far behind Ichigo's level in those areas. The reason he needed to rest was to calm himself down. Ichigo was in trouble. He felt it. He should find him, watch his back, shield him when he can protect himself. But he had his mission, and Ichigo trusted him. Thinking back on last night when they talked, flashback. Hey Chad, what's with those packets you gave to Ganju's friends? Ichigo asked before they all retired for the night. I don't know. Something Urahara gave me. Said 5 in every district and where the pressure seemed greatest. He told me and Uryu to place these in the hotspots all over the Serte. He explained. He didn't say it, but he felt uneasy about abandoning Ichigo in enemy territory. Don't even think about it, Chad, Ichigo quickly said. I don't care how bad it gets. You have a mission and you see it through to the end. Don't worry about me, because I'm not worried about you, he said, making the giant look at him quizzically. I have too much faith in you to worry about you dying on me, he answered, throwing a confident smile to his longtime friend. It eased Sato's nerves as he fell asleep for the night. Flashback end. Ichigo, he mumbled, rubbing the medallion on his neck. You'll be fine, he said, reassuring himself before lying down to rest for a while. I'm sorry for being a bad friend. I can't help but be worried about you from time to time. I swear to never let you down, though. He let the darkness take him. With Uryu and Orihime, the duo finished placing the next batch at their current location when they felt Ichigo's battle. Orihime desperately wanted to get his side, but Uryu managed to calm her down by reminding her how outclassed she would be. Best to let Ichigo finish his fight when she could be safe from the crossfire. By the time the dust settled and it was safe to go to him, he vanished. Uryu became the victim of an angry Orihime and her less than happy fairies who were now attacking Uryu in the most annoying manner possible, with Orihime angrily pouting at him. Well, at least she's not really hurting me, he rationalized after remembering what she did to that one Shinigami that attacked them. The ones they saw first were easily dispatched with his bow and Tsubaki. The ones that found them, Orihime proved her frightening skill with her martial arts. It was embarrassing that she was handling the close quarters combat while he was too slow to stop them. He could hold his own. Orihime just always attacked first. That's when he felt a familiar reishi presence, one he only recognized from his father. What the hell? He wondered before feeling a fluctuation in reishi that quickly dissipated. Uryu, what was that? Orihime asked, recalling her spirits and calming down. That was Ichigo and something else, Uryu said, being as vague as possible. The Vanderite rushes from the shadows. The shadows of Soul Society. How is this possible? He tried to figure out before deciding to double their efforts in progress. Come on, Orihime, we have work to do. Right, she said, matching the urgency in his tone. Inside Ichigo's inner world. Was this on your command? The Black Zangetsu questioned, standing watchful over his charging master. Are you sentient enough to make these commands, or was this the order of your mindless dogs? Ichigo himself rested peacefully, unaware of events that took place. Well, that was boring, came the warped voice of the real blade. King showing a hopeful progress, though. Then the Quincy soldats are dead, the elder said. That's good. They might see the asset or threat that Ichigo is, but won't attack knowing he isn't vulnerable. He then noticed Ichigo healing faster. Yeah, they'll also be less inclined now knowing that what might happen. The Hollow spoke. It'll take more than a bunch of nameless drones to capture Ichigo on our watch. Indeed, the old man said, watching Ichigo awake from his slumber. Like maybe a cute girl with a nice rack. Someone like that one blonde chick. Shut up with Ichigo. He roused himself from his slumber, releasing a yawn as he stretched himself and feeling several familiar pops in his joints and back. He forced himself to his feet and stretched out more. Thank God for my regenerative powers, he said to himself. Not only would I be sore, I'd be dead otherwise. Where do souls go when they die? Ichigo asked as he opened his eyes, only to be met with the picture of several dead bodies, all in white military uniforms with a Quincy cross that all seemed to have a deep gashes in their bodies. He looked down to see his blade, stained red in gore. Let it go, Ichigo. You have stuff to do, he said, choosing to ignore the bodies of Quincy. If he was going to reach Yamamoto today, he could not afford any distractions. He proceeded to leave his little hideaway after calling his blade back to his hand. Squad 8 barracks. Captain Kyoraku, a female Shinigami with a stern expression, called to her lazy captain. A ryoka has appeared. Which one, Nano? The lazy bearded man known as Shunsui Kiraku asked his secretary slash lieutenant. Tatsuki gave them a description of her friends and vouched that Ichigo would never kill unless necessary. Based on what Arisawa said, he should be Yasutora Shadow Sado. She said he's not permitted to fight a captain, but neither was Arisawa, and she sparred with Captain Soifon. There is a difference, he said, rising from his nap. Come on, let's go greet our guests. Squad 1 barracks. Ichigo finally made it to the courtyard of the leader of the Gotai 13's base. The building stood there, tall and imposing, as Ichigo strode over to his destination. Come on out already, Ichigo called out. I know I've kept you waiting, but I was held up. He felt an immense spiritual pressure come down on him as a hunched figure on the roof of the barracks stood up. Ichigo felt a savage nature, much like his repressed instincts. As much as he hated to say it, Ichigo was excited. The man jumped off the roof of the barracks. It came crashing down across from him. I admit, I was losing patience, the Kenpachi said in a deep tone, the jingling of his bells adding somewhat to his menace. But that fight last night only served to excite me more. He stood to his full imposing height, showing his brutal and ragged form. Name's Kenpachi Saraki, captain on Squad 11, and I'm pleased to finally meet you, Ichigo Kurosaki, he said with a savage grin. End of chapter 19. Ichigo Awakens by Telach, chapter 20, Pack of Fighters. Pack of Fighters. With Chad, the hours passed outside as he rested inside. He went through years of his life, the life he regretted as a kid, angry at everything and anyone, just waiting for an excuse to lash out. The life he had because of his grandfather, helping others with his powerful fist while taking unbelievable punishment with his strong body. Now the life he lives as as an unbreakable shield to a mighty protector. His strength granted granted to one that helped him find a sense of meaning in his life, a best friend that he'd be ready to die for because he would do the same. He then defied death because he knew Ichigo would never forgive him for that. He chuckled slightly, finding humor in the contradiction of refusing his death when that was Ichigo's job description. He was brought out of his musings when he heard the shots of Shinigami outside the warehouse he was sleeping in. Guess that's it for my nap, he mumbled before transforming his arm. He rose up and walked over to the door, the yelling and thudding getting louder and louder. He made a swift strike at one of the hinges, blowing a hole through the frame and quieting the crowd outside. He repeated that 3 more times, leaving the door very loose in its place. He backed up a little bit before charging and using the door as a makeshift ram. A good chunk of that crowd of Soul Reapers ended up unconscious from the sudden impact as Chad began his rampage through the crowd, punches like lightning sending his opponents flying as he pretty much wadded through the crowd, throwing some around like discarded clothing, clicks that cleared a path like axes to wood. The intense cannon blasts of Reishi from his black right arm, more akin to a force of nature than a man to all the Shinigami bones. Against him, a group of 20 strong, reduced to nothing but mangled, broken bones. Maybe I should try to hold back more. Chad wondered aloud as he studied the aftermath. Craters in the walls and streets with bent or broken swords, all around him with piles of unconscious Soul Reapers. Oh well, he said before fishing out his locator and proceeding with his task. I wonder how Ichigo's doing. With Ichigo and Kenpachi. Kenpachi, Ichigo said, staring down at his opponent. The greatest fighter of the court guard squads, the man who stands atop a mountain of corpses. He remembered the stories of the various title holders told by his teachers, all the hollows he faced, the hardest his teachers attacked him, none of it compared to the dark savagery of the man standing across from him. It was both unsettling and exciting for the young hybrid. Ikaku said you'd want to meet me. Any reason why? Because you're strong. Kenpachi responded like it was the simplest thing in the world. My interest has always been in a good fight. Good, evil, justice, chaos. I don't care about any of that, because none of it matters in a fight. He then adopted a confused scowl, thinking that Ichigo knew what he was talking about. Why should fighting need a reason? You fight for the sake of fighting, Ichigo said. Can't say I understand that. My fights usually end up being disappointments because they were too weak or because they were holding back. Like Ikaku and Aizen? The battle-scarred man asked. I did get that feeling that Ikaku was holding back in a lot of his matches, but what about Aizen then? Ikaku needed to be taught a lesson, Ichigo said while his presence was turning darker. Aizen, on the other hand, must die. Zaraki felt an old familiar tension in his body, one he hadn't sensed in centuries, a sense that his opponent might kill him. Wow, Ichi can be really scary. The tension was broken as a small pink-haired little girl made her presence known. Ichigo looked down on the small lieutenant as the two calmed down. Looks like this can be a lot of fun, Kenny. She cheered as she ran back to her captain. Kenpachi smirked again as his lieutenant destroyed the tension. Yeah, it's been so long since I've had a good fight, he said, already unsheathing his blades. The small display Ichigo gave earlier put him on slight edge, no longer needing to see if he could put up a good fight. Now get out of the way, Yachiro. This could get messy. The small girl jumped off to her vantage point on top of the 1st Division barracks. Hey, King, Sangetsu spoke out to his wielder. There's something I want to check out. You mind? Ichigo looked up to the small lieutenant, almost understanding his blade's interest in the girl. Something about her was off. So, without saying anything, he materialized his Sanpakuto spirit, appearing as a familiar reflection of Ichigo with his skull mask, who disappeared just as quickly. Sorry, my Sanpakuto was interested in your lieutenant, Ichigo said, drawing his blade. Now, why don't you show me how to enjoy a fight? He growled before the two charged at each other, resulting in a loud clang. With pleasure, Kenpachi roared, already feeling his battle cry coming on. With Chad, he kept on with his mission, following the signals to the next hotspot on his locator to place the next tag. No Shirigami was able to stop him. Against his overflowing strength and surprising speed and reaction abilities, they were leaves taking a concrete wall. His signal was now coming from his immediate right, behind an 80-foot wall. The extension on his arm snapped open as he charged his energy. El Directo, he yelled, blasting a hole through the wall and removing or scaring off any other Soul Reaper in the area. He made his way through the hole and kept moving forward. When his way was blocked by one Shinigami, claiming to be a third seat, Chad just shoved him out of the way. The apparent third in command was shot through another wall. He only stopped when he saw the flower petals and a man in a flowery kimono with a straw hat. Hello there, Yasutaro Sato, the man said in a cheerful, lazy manner. I am Shunsui Kyoraku, captain of Squad 8. The two continued to stare at each other. Kyoraku with a smile against Chad's passive expression. All the while, flower petals kept falling, or was being tossed around by the female secretary Soul Reaper above them. Hey, Nano, the captain called. The moment's past. You can stop now. She just kept on tossing. Nano, can you hear me? My sweet Nano, lovely little Nana. She dumped the rest of the petals on him with no tact, annoyance clearly showing on her face. Does this happen often? Sato asked as Kyoraku got out of the pile. Yeah, she's just shy is all, he said, brushing off the remaining flower petals. So, what now? Since you know my name, I'm guessing you know that I'm also not supposed to fight captains. Shunsui smiled and nodded. How's Tatsuki? She's fine. quite popular with the members of the second squad for her martial arts skill. But there's something I wanted to ask you, Yatsutaro Sato, he said, getting a sense of seriousness about him. Chad immediately had his guard up in case he needed to run or defend himself. Will you join me for a drink? The captain said with a smile, pulling out a jug of sake with two small cups. After the initial shock wore off, he relaxed again but was still ready to move. Come on, it's a lovely day. Just sit down and have a few drinks while we chat, Shunsui said. Sorry, but no, Sato said, earning a surprised look from the captain. I appreciate the offer, but I'm underage. I'm not supposed to drink any alcohol. Kirako let out a sigh of disappointment. Well, that's a shame. This is some good stuff, too. The two again just stood and waited as time passed. My lieutenant makes excellent tea, the captain offered. That works, Chad said as he dispelled his power and sat across from the captain. No, could you be a dear and get us some tea and snacks? He asked his stern lieutenant, who just disappeared after shooting him a glare. Why do you have to be so cold, my sweet Nano? He cried with anime tears running down his face. Can you explain to me the current situation, Mr. Hirako? Chad asked, seeing as he had nothing else to do. He remembered hearing about Shunsui Hirako as one of the oldest captains of the 13 squads, above all, a man that he did not want to make an enemy of. You mean with your friends? The captain clarified, getting a serious nod from the giant. Captured dead or alive, Ichigo Kurosaki is considered a captain's only target, so whatever it is your friend has to say to old man Yama, it better be good, he said while they sensed a sudden burst of Reiatsu. Sangetsu and Yoshiro. That guy has no idea, does he? The hollow blade asked the child sitting at his side, their gaze fixed on the hybrid and the berserker as they struggled against one another. The clashing of their blades were enough to be an orchestra of battle. Nope, he doesn't, Yachiro said with a melancholic smile. All he cares about is fighting. Nothing else really matters. She explained to her companion. He understands himself perfectly, and I help him with what he wants. If he wants to cripple himself so badly that he's just a shell of his real power, then that's fine. I've gotten used to him doing that. But because of all that, he's the closest to understanding him, even if he's blind to see it. Sangetsu finished, seeing a close parallel between Ichigo and Kenpachi. The battle-hungry warrior was simplistic and chose to ignore what was right in front of him. The hybrid was complex but tackled it head-on. One was already powerful but was holding back, while the other had unlimited potential and had to earn it. Saraki will lose in the end, the white spirit said, just as Ichigo was starting to get sloppy in their fight. Ichigo's too stubborn to die. With Ichigo versus Kenpachi, the fight was even when it started. Slashes, blocks, stabs, dodges, clashes, and grunts between the two as they struggled, showcasing their skills. Ichigo was fast, but Kenpachi was experienced. No matter how he went at him, Kenpachi had dodge or block ready. Unfortunately, something else was happening that affected Ichigo's performance. Ichigo was used to his opponents being level-headed or in fear of him. This man thrived on the feeling he was getting from fighting Ichigo. It wasn't like when Ichigo fought Sangetsu because he knew his blade. The man across from him, the Kenpachi, was a savage beast that killed for sport, and he was getting stronger as the fight went on. It started to unnerve the hybrid and got slashed across the chest. Ah, damn it! He cursed as the burning pain rang out from the tear on his chest. A shallow cut, but it was not healing as quickly due to the blade fragment still in his back. Zaraki came on him with another attack, which Ichigo blocked, but was overpowered as the chipped blade dug into his flesh. What the hell is wrong with me? He yelled out as the captain continued to cut and slash him. The damage was minimal, but was building up. What's wrong, Ichigo? Kenpachi growled, feeling a level of disappointment in his enemy. I thought you wanted to learn how to enjoy fighting. Why are you cowering now? Ichigo froze, the battle-scarred man, words ringing in his ear. He hadn't been afraid since Urahara and Hidorichi drilled killing intent into his skull. He fought Aizen with the tension of, wait, no, I didn't, Ichigo realized. Aizen's goal was to spread chaos among the Soul Reapers. Everyone else was trying to capture me. Why is this affecting me so much? Even he isn't supposed to try to kill me, right? Ichigo struggled with the idea, feeling that if he wasn't careful with Saraki, then he was going to die. Regeneration just wouldn't work if he was cut in half. On the surface, Ichigo and Zaraki were pretty even, but there was more hidden deep within. A monster hidden underneath the battle-hungry warrior. That's what had the protector on edge. His mistake was fighting Zaraki like a man when he needed to be more like a beast. Stealing himself, Ichigo did the best thing he could to calm himself down. "What are you?" the captain asked. Ichigo punched him in the face with a loud, resounding crack. Kenpachi could only watch as Ichigo took several breaths, each one becoming more and more even as he brought himself back to reality. "Sorry, lost my nerve for a bit," Ichigo said, his injuries already healing. "I wanted you to show me how to enjoy a fight, and you did." Ichigo's Ryotsu took on a noticeable shift to a more hollow-like one, fully aware of his audience. "I was too focused. I just needed to let myself go," he said as his eyes shifted. "I promise to give you what you want," he said, glaring at the man with his black and gold eyes. Next thing Kenpachi knew, Ichigo was in front of him, making a long cut across his chest. Ichigo had a manic grin on his face, which matched Kenpachi's own. "That's it," he said before their blades clashed once again. "That is what I was hoping for." He started laughing as they continued their fight. This continued as they both struck at the other, trying to come out on top. Both were in tatters and blood as their blades continued to find their marks. "This is the best!" Kenpachi yelled as his cut through Ichigo's shoulder, who left a dangerous mark on Kenpachi's neck. They separated as Zaraki continued to laugh. "Thank you, Ichigo. Thank you for existing. Never have I come across someone like you," he said through his laughter. "There has only been one other person that has made me feel this way. No, you might even eclipse that." He stopped laughing and keeping that manic smile. "I can't give you anything but my full effort, Ichigo. Let's go." He ripped off his eye patch and unleashed his Reiatsu all over the Serite. People felt his battle with Yuruichi. "Ichigo," she thought, watching the two behemoths clash. "Be careful. Squad 4 barracks. Looks like the captain is having fun," Ikaku said as he and Yumichika were enjoying a few cups of tea as the bald warrior was visited by his friend. "He's way out of my league, I can tell that much." "And the captain's about to use his trump card," the fifth seat said. "To think he was strong enough to push him that far." Unbeknownst to the two fighters was the current captain of the 4th Division. "Far from it, you two," she thought, feeling her lone scar on her chest ache a little. "The boy is undoing my greatest sin just a little bit. Either way, one of them will end up here." Near the repentant cell. "Is that Ichigo?" Hanataru yelled, the massive Ryotsu clashing affecting them as a blizzard in the mountains. "Just what the hell is he?" Genji growled out as he helped keep their small group going. "There was only one problem." "Yeah, go Ichigo, kick his ass!" And Ganju cheered, holding up their progress a bit. "Shut up and keep going," the lieutenant yelled. Uryu and Orihime. "Let me go, Uryu!" Orihime yelled as she struggled against her Quincy companion's strength. "He needs help. Just let me go." "I can't do that," Uryu yelled. "Ichigo would never forgive me if you got hurt, and I could have prevented it." She kept struggling, but it was weaker and weaker with every second. Knowing that Ichigo would want her somewhere safe. With Uryu, it was certainly much safer than wandering around on her own, trying to find whatever fight Ichigo was in the middle of. "Calm down, Orihime. Ichigo has the strongest will of anyone I've ever known. He'll survive. We have to keep moving," he urged one last time before she started crying. "Even with my powers, I'd only be in the way," she sobbed before he turned her around and hugged her. "Think of it more as waiting for him to come home and get patched up," he said when she calmed down. "After all, think about him with a couple scars. For once," he said. Orihime did just that, and a drip of blood came out of her nose. "Doesn't sound so bad now, does it?" He waited for a response, but she was clearly in her own little world. "And I lost her. Good job, idiot," he berated himself before throwing her over his shoulder and carrying her off. Chad and Hidraku. "Looks like things are getting a little hectic over there," Shunsui noted as he hunched on another rice cracker. "So I was saying, why are you here? Your friend seems fixed on meeting with the old man and saving Rukia." He took a drink of his tea while looking Sato in the eye. "His reason makes sense, but what about you?" "There's not much to it," Chad said. Ichigo's my friend. If he needs my help, I'll give it. Deliver a message, help him move, fight off a group of thugs, even if it puts my life on the line. I'd help him. Huh, he must be a good friend to have that kind of loyalty out of you. Kiraku noted, thinking of his own best friend in a sickly captain. To be completely honest, Kiraku, if he didn't tell me to not fight a losing battle, we'd be fighting right now. This earned a look from the lazy captain. Ichigo swore to me that if there was anything I'd give my life for, then so would he. All he asked was that I do the same. It's a meeting that gave me purpose. The captain burst out laughing in notable cheer. Then I'll have to thank him for this nice conversation. He reached out and laid a hand on his shoulder. You're a good man, Yasutaro Sato. It's a shame I have to put you in a detention cell. You had your duties. I had mine, Chad said as they finished their picnic. With Tatsuki. Come on. I've got restraints on and I'm still beating you. Tatsuki yelled out, jumping around with frantic agility while wearing cuffs on her wrists and ankles, kicking and punching various members of the second division. She had enough favor with Soifun to keep up her martial arts skills, but only under strict supervision. Most of the squad took it to mean the ones that get to watch are fine. Everyone else needs to improve. There were only 5 people watching, excluding the lieutenant who was turned into Tatsuki's punching bag as a result of his embarrassing defeat. Tatsuki needed the distraction, feeling Ichigo's fight was putting her on edge as well. Ichigo, if you die, I'm gonna be pissed, she thought before jumping and kicking another guy in the head. You win? Then I'm getting that sexy nurse outfit I found. Sangetsu and Yachiro. Ichigo seems like a good guy, Yachiru said with a smile, almost envious of the protector. Yeah, Saraki's going to say something stupid soon, Sagetsu bluntly said, with Ichigo and Saraki. Fine, call out your Sanpakuto, Ichigo called out. Saraki merely raised an eyebrow. My Sanpakuto doesn't have a name, he bluntly said, destroying the mood of the fight. What? Ichigo dryly asked. He thought he saw Sangetsu give himself a tired facepalm. My spiritual pressure is so great that no seal can contain it. This is the true form of my Sanpakuto, he declared. You are captain of the Gotai 13, telling me you have no connection to your blade despite X numbers, decades, years even, of using it, Ichigo tried to clarify. Sanpakuto are simply weapons for killing. That's all there is to it, he defended ignorantly. Even if they do have spirits of their own, they're simply tools of battle. Is he for real? Ichigo asked himself as he felt his eye twitch. The look in Sapaki's eyes told him that he believed what he was saying. Zangetsu! Ichigo called out, making his blade turn and his spirit appear at his side. Yep, the hollow blade asked, just as irritated. I'm going to start hurting him now. I don't know if I'll stop. Ichigo almost growled out. Mask? Zangetsu asked, concerned about how far this was going to go. I honestly do not care at this point, he said before a black vortex of reishi consumed the both of them. When it calmed down, it revealed Ichigo with his red and white hollow mask. Playtime's over, Zaraki, he said before spinning his blade by the cloth. I'm ending this. Ending, Zaraki laughed. This is just start. He was interrupted by Ichigo's massive blade slamming into his stomach and sending him flying with a deep slash. The blade returned to Ichigo's hand as he spun it again. He said he's releasing his full power, but even now it's steadily increasing to match my own, Ichigo observed, sensing the growing power in the Kenpachi. Zaraki soon got back up, his psychopathic smile still on his face. What's happening? Kenpachi made a downward slash on Ichigo, but it stopped cold on his shoulder. Ichigo kicked him back and brought his blade down like a buzzsaw on Zaraki. He blocked up, but the repeated slashes made several cuts in the behemoth, and his power kept growing. What am I feeling from this guy? Ichigo charged at his opponent, raising his arm to block another slash. The chipped sword connected and slowly dug its way through his arm. Ichigo quickly tilted his arm and slashed down with Sangetsu, coming out with a thin slice of his forearm. And now he's cut through my hero. Ichigo took his chance to kick off of Kenpachi and into the air. Take this, Getsuga Tensho, he yelled, swinging his blade wildly downwards and sending a barrage of reishi blasts. All that power, he can't even hear his own Zanpakuto, and all he wants is to fight. Even unrestrained, he's holding back. Not consciously, at least, Sangetsu let slip. It seems like he has the most insulting seal on himself. The elder version said. He holds back because of it. Wait, Ify. Ichigo asked the spirits as he landed. Saraki marching out of the darkness, radiating his yellow light, highlighting all the burns, cuts, and blood he's covered in. Come on, Ichigo, he said, staggering a little, not used to this level of damage anymore. I'm not done yet, he charged at Ichigo, fully enjoying himself despite the condition he was in, until Ichigo froze him with a single statement. You're afraid to kill me, aren't you? Kenpachi stopped, a storm of emotions going through his head, confusion at the general statement and anger that he would be afraid of anything. What the hell are you talking about? He demanded. Who could possibly be afraid to kill their enemy? I kill hundreds for fun, so why should I be afraid of another's blood staining my sword? You said it yourself. You thank me for existing, Ichigo explained, dispelling his mask. You've gone so long without a truly worthy opponent that you are incapable of releasing your true strength out of fear that you'll never find a worthy challenge again. Zaraki continued to glare at his opponent and hated the fact that, on some level, this lecture was making sense to him. Don't mock me. Come at me like you mean it. Prove me wrong and ram that chipped blade through my heart. The hybrid yelled, demanding action from his enemy. Quit your quivering and attack! The Kenpachi did. He charged at Ichigo with his blade, aimed straight for the boy's heart. Time slowed for the both of them as the blade inched closer to its target. For the slightest instant, however, it became apparent to the captain. Ichigo was right. Right about him. He didn't want to kill such a worthy match, not when he could have more battles like they just had. He tried to avoid the fatal strike before he felt a hand grasp his own. What? He saw Ichigo grab the blade and skewer himself through the chest. Blood slowly dripped from his wound as Ichigo pulled himself further down the blade, coughing up some blood on the way down until he came face to face with the battle-hungry captain. He took hold of the man's hierarchy and slammed their skulls together. Now listen here, you bastard, the hybrid yelled. You will never be able to kill me, stab me, cut me, slash me, whatever. I will never die by your hand. If you want an opponent to fight, fight you. Then you fight you. Then that's what I'll be. Kenpachi looked at the defiant boy on his sword and felt a strange sense of hope in his chest. Become my ally, fight by my side, and I will be the last opponent you will ever face. All others will be a warm up for our next fight. Ichigo then stabbed Kenpachi through the chest, just barely missing on anything vital. This is our pact. I will be that fighter you've been waiting for, and you will return to your true strength, or I'll kill you trying. Do you accept this? Ichigo asked, glaring at his enemy as the shock fell from the man's eyes. Slowly, he began laughing excitedly, striking terror in many hearts as the unbridled joy of Zaraki filled the air. Very well then, Ichigo. I accept, he whispered with tears of happiness streaming down his face. It was a new feeling for him, hope that he finally found someone on his level, and he liked it. Ichigo pried out the sword from Zaraki and threw him to the side before blasting him away with a point-blank zero. He'll be fine, right? He has his blade as Sangetsu materialized again, and the small pink-haired Yachiro came down. Yeah, Kenny will be fine, she chirped excitedly. He's really tough. Thank you for fighting him, Ichi, she said before turning to where her partner went. You better keep your promise, or I'm gonna be really mad, Kay? Don't worry, Sangetsu said. When we get the time, they'll be around too. Yachiro beamed the duo a smile before turning to leave. He'll call you by your real name soon enough, he said before she disappeared. The two looked on before something registered with the strawberry. Wait, is she? He asked his blade. Yes, she is, he said before pulling out the sword in his partner's chest. Ah, damn it. That hurts, Ichigo cried out. The blade teared through his body as he dropped to his hands and knees. That was a bad idea. He began healing. Just leave a scar. I need that for our agreement, he said while the blood stopped flowing. After a few seconds passed, he rose up and staggered his way towards the doors of the First Division's barracks with Chad and Kirako. So you're certain the head captain will hear Ichigo out? The giant asked the captain as they made their way to the prisoner's cells. Of course, he was interested in your friend for a long time. He can be a reasonable man, he assured Saro, Before they heard an explosive rock dissipate, they turned to see a tower. They turned to see a tower of fire and smoke rise in the distance. "What is that?" Chad asked, afraid for his friends. That was the old man Yama. End of chapter 20.